If you're thinking about becoming a medical coder, or maybe you're even in school right now to become a medical coder, there's actually a lot of things that people tend to not tell you before you get into this career. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I absolutely love this field. Medical coding completely changed my life. It gave me opportunities that I never expected. It gave me flexibility, stability, a career that I really, really enjoy. But I also think there are some realities that people unfortunately don't discover until after they've invested a bunch of time and money and energy and gotten certified. So, in this video, I want to talk about some of the things that I wish I knew before becoming a medical coder, along with some of the things I often hear coders say quite a bit. So, let's talk about it. Oh, and if you're new here, hey, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. And on my channel, I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get alerts when I post new episodes. So, first things first, the big one is that getting certified as a medical coder doesn't automatically get you hired. That is probably one of the hardest realizations for a lot of new coders. Getting certified is extremely important. Most employers are not going to hire you unless you have a medical coding credential, like one from a PC, like the CPC certification, or one from a HEMA. Certification is usually the very beginning of your coding journey. It's the first big hurdle that you have to hop over. It is not, though, the finish line. A lot of people expect that the CPC alone is going to open up the doors. And sometimes for people, that does in fact happen. But a lot of times, especially now, employers are really looking for experience or some specialty knowledge, familiarity with the different systems like electronic medical records. They're looking for certain productivity and communication skills, or just a more in depth understanding of documentation and medical records and the different components of medical coding. Coding jobs have really evolved to be so much more than just finding codes in a book. That used to be true maybe 15, 20 years ago, that it was just a lot of, hey, here are these books and you look up codes in them. But now it's really a lot more in depth. There's a lot more knowledge that you have to have than just being able to look up codes in a book. This is why networking matters. This is why internships matter. This is why LinkedIn, unfortunately, matters, whether you like it or not. It's why continuing education matters. Your certification is that first big hurdle. It's not the only one. Building a career still takes a lot of strategy. It still takes a lot of persistence. And I don't really even think that's exclusive to medical coding. I think that's very true of a lot of more computer and office-based careers these days. It's just something that I think people should be a little bit more aware of from the get-go, because then it can eliminate some students feeling quite so defeated when they really shouldn't be. And actually, that's one of the reasons that I really like talking about Preppy, because one of the things I especially appreciate is their focus on helping students become job ready, not just exam ready. There's that transition from I passed my certification to I am actually ready to work. That can feel very, very overwhelming for a lot of people. Not everyone has those skill sets of how to build a resume and how to interview or how to get that experience. Preppy includes support that helps bridge that gap so students can feel more prepared when they are entering the workforce. And if you've been considering training in medical coding, you can get signed up today with Preppy, and you can use my code CONTEMPO to save $100 off your registration when you use the one-time pay in full option. So check out startmedicalcoding.com to find out more. I will also detail the information in the video description. Now, one of the other big things that I really wish people understood before becoming a medical coder is that the salaries you often see advertised online, and that I even mention online, are average salaries. They're not entry level salaries. And that difference matters a lot. I think some people see articles or hear things from influencers or from advertisements saying medical coders are making, $60,000 or $70,000, even more. I know some medical coders that have been in the industry for a while. They have really developed themselves. They've put in the work and they are making well above six figures. But for a new coder, you can get very easily discouraged when your first offer is nowhere near that. A lot of these salary reports, and I even do full breakdowns of the AEPC salary surveys on my channel, they're showing the entire industry. And in the case of the AEPC salary survey, their entire membership. And that's just self-reported information. It's not like the companies themselves are forced to give this information or are voluntarily saying this is what we're paying people. It's just the members that are self-reporting that information. So that includes very experienced coders. It includes auditors. It includes risk adjustment coders, different specialty coders, managers, consultants, educators, people who have 2 years of experience, people who have 20 years of experience. So entry-level coding salaries, like true of any industry, they are usually lower, and then you build experience and confidence, and then you make those higher salaries after time. And I really wish that more people were kind of upfront with that. I try to be very forthright and be like, this is the average salary entry level. Also depends on a lot of different factors. When I go through the AEPC salary survey, I show like regional differences. There are some regions, for example, in the South, areas like Tennessee or Kentucky, where salaries are much lower because the cost of living is lower there, and certain areas like California and Hawaii, where you make quite a bit more money, but you also have to pay a lot more in cost of living. It's a lot more expensive to purchase a house there or rent an apartment. So, that is a big frustration point when you're starting out. Those coding careers, really, they build up over time. Your first role is oftentimes a stepping stone role, something where you're working in billing or prior authorization, but you start to learn the workflow, the productivity, the provider documentation, the payer rules, how to work denials, and then get into the real world coding logic. And honestly, that kind of experience becomes so incredibly valuable later. So even if your first job isn't your dream job title and it's not your immediate dream salary, that doesn't mean that this career is not worth it. It just means that you're in that beginning phase. Next thing, and this doesn't so much apply to me because I started years ago, but I see this a lot as a current frustration of medical coders, and that AI isn't really replacing coders, but it is really changing coders. It's changing the role of a coder. This is a big conversation right now, and I think the truth is more nuanced than people make it sound online. AI is changing healthcare documentation, how providers document. It is changing a lot of medical workflows, absolutely. But medical coding in and of itself, that process of reviewing the documentation and abstracting all the diagnoses and applying payer rules, there is a lot of dependence still on human judgment, on clinical interaction, on compliance, on auditing, on validation, on understanding nuance and context. And what I think is changing, especially in the eyes of employers, is they are looking more so for coders who understand technology, who understand auditing, documentation improvement, data validation, compliance, who have that real, true critical thinking. Those coders are going to continue to be incredibly valuable. So instead of panicking about AI, I think the better approach is to be adaptable, keep learning, be willing to grow your skills, but also do not, above anything else, become complacent. You will need to stay ahead to stay employable. Employers are not looking to hire an AI button pusher. They're not looking for George Jetson to just come in and push the button. And they are willing to pay very good money, but you have to have the analytical skills and the knowledge that is worth that. Which is why my next topic is that medical coding is a lot more analytical than people think. When people see medical coding at first, they think it's either, oh, you look things up in these books, or some people think that you have to memorize codes. And that's really not it. Coding is analytical. It's constantly asking things like, does the documentation support this? Is this diagnosis clinically supported? Is this procedure bundled? Is this upcoding, overcoding? Do we have medical necessity to back this up? What guidelines apply? What payer edits really matter here? So we're interpreting documentation and we're analyzing all of these complex regulations and applying these rules. So coding, a lot of people say, is like puzzle solving, all day puzzle solving. And honestly, that's why a lot of people really love it. I've had so many coders that I've interviewed in the past or talked to, and they're like, I love it because it's like solving puzzles all day long, or it's like watching medical dramas, but just getting to do the back end stuff. For some people, though, it's not what they were anticipating. So if you enjoy critical thinking, you enjoy pattern recognition, noticing that maybe providers are trying to copy forward the same templates or same notes, and you can notice those details and you would have problem solved, you'll probably wind up enjoying medical coding a lot more. Next thing I want to talk about is that it takes longer to feel confident than a lot of people expect. I wish someone had told me that feeling confident as a coder really can take time, like sometimes more time than you expect, and sometimes it kind of waxes and wanes. You hit roadblocks where maybe you have some blows to the ego. So you can study hard, you can pass your certification, you can feel like you know things, and then you will encounter a chart and you'll sit there and stare at it and you're like, what is happening here? What am I even looking at? What do I abstract out of this first? And that's normal. Real world coding is very different from tackling practice questions. And honestly, most coders go through a phase where they second guess themselves, sometimes multiple phases. Confidence usually develops over time through the repetition, through exposure to different specialties and different scenarios, through feedback, through reviewing your mistakes and understanding how and why they happened and seeing patterns over time. You're not supposed to know everything immediately. And honestly, even experienced coders will still look policies and guidelines up all the time. I still don't have the guidelines memorized for sepsis, but I know there are guidelines for sepsis. So when I get those cases, I review my guidelines. Sometimes the issue isn't that you don't know how to code or you don't know what the code is. Sometimes it's just the documentation is vague or they're missing details. The diagnosis isn't specified enough. The provider maybe contradicted themselves within the documentation. Coding depends on documentation. And this is one reason that communication skills actually have become more important in this career because of having to do things like provider queries. Next, and I did realize this maybe a few years into my coding career, and that's specialties matter a lot more than you might think. Medical coding is like that foundation. You have to have that good, strong foundation of medical coding, a little bit of everything. But specialties can feel like almost completely different careers. Orthopedics feels very different from cardiology. Cardiology is very different from OBGYN. Risk adjustment feels completely different from surgical coding. Inpatient is different from outpatient. And your experience in one specialty can dramatically affect your salary, your job opportunities, stress levels, productivity expectations. It takes a lot longer to code inpatient cases than it does to code simple day surgeries. Career growth can be impacted. Sometimes people think they don't like coding because they just haven't found the right specialty yet. There are certainly specialties, anything involving the skin, I prefer a lot more than other specialties. Next is that burnout can happen even in remote roles. When I started out in medical coding, my thought process was I am just going to learn medical coding. I'm going to get a work from home job and I'm not going to be bothered with anyone ever again. And I'm not going to have to talk to anyone and everyone can just leave me alone and I'm going to get my paycheck and go out and spend it on whatever I want. My career did not take that leap. I wound up finding out that I had interest within the office. But, I've talked to coders who even pre-COVID, when remote work was not as common, they hated remote work. They said that, they would be in their pajamas all day. They had trouble even getting showered. Like they got really depressed. So remote work for a lot of people can be game changing. It can be amazing, but burnout absolutely still does happen, especially in medical coding. It can get very isolating. Coding involves a lot of productivity metrics and a lot of concentrating for long periods of time, focusing, reading, doing repetitive tasks. There's constant accuracy expectations. There's that, again, very high concentration. And working remotely can sometimes make it harder to separate work life from the rest of your life, especially if you don't have like a separate office. It's really helpful if you have like a space you can go into and you're like, this is work mode space. Some people are setting up offices in their bedroom, and that can really mess with you because now if you're going into that room, you don't know if you're in work mode or you don't know if you're in sleep mode. I've even read some studies where people say don't put exercise equipment in your bedroom because your brain just it can't toggle back and forth. It doesn't know those signals, and sometimes it thinks that's time to work out and not time to relax and sleep. So you have to be very intentional about protecting your boundaries. You have to take breaks and move your body. Even like ergonomics, protect your eyes and your wrists and your back. You have to have hobbies outside of medical coding, things that make your life worth living, because your career matters, but your health and your mental health especially matter too. And lastly, and I guess it was okay that I didn't know this right away, but I did discover that your career can expand in very unexpected ways. Medical coding can lead to a lot of opportunities that you never expected. Again, I wanted to work remotely and be left alone by everyone, and didn't even come close to that. I really enjoyed meeting up with the community and working as a chapter officer and getting involved in committees and presenting and teaching. So when I first started, I never imagined that I'd end up teaching or creating content or speaking at conferences and building courses and networking with a lot of really incredible people and really helping so many other people enter this field. And there are a lot of directions. I mean, you don't obviously have to become a content creator, but there's so many directions you can go into. We talked about all of the different medical specialties. Every medical specialty that you can think of has coding for that medical specialty. But we also have auditing and education and compliance and risk adjustment and consulting and management and documentation improvement and revenue cycle and healthcare tech. I have friends that work in the legal end of things. So your first coding job is not necessarily your forever job. Your career can evolve with you and it can pivot. You might go out and get your CPMA, your Certified Professional Medical Auditor credential, and then decide, you know what, I don't really like this. I want to go build out the stuff with Epic EMR. So yeah, honestly, that's one of my favorite things about medical coding is you can pivot and you can evolve and go where you need to. So those are some of the big things that I wish I knew before becoming a medical coder, or others have told me that they wish they knew before becoming a medical coder. And I think this kind of conversation really helps people have those realistic expectations and helps people succeed. Medical coding can absolutely be very rewarding and stable and flexible and intellectually fulfilling, but also frustrating and it can make you question your sanity at times. And it's like any job where, you have to at least have that 80/20. Maybe 80% of the time you really like your job, but maybe upwards of 20% there's some things that I could do without. And if it starts tipping too far into like 25% of stuff that you don't like or 30%, maybe it's time to reevaluate. But if you're in that early stage right now, you're studying, you're getting certified, you're just looking into medical coding, or you're applying for jobs and working on building that confidence, I just want to let you know that struggling at the beginning is incredibly normal. You are learning an entire industry in a very complicated one. So that takes a lot of time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.